What we want to talk about today, one of our biggest priorities here at LinkedIn around diversity, inclusion, and belonging, what we call DIBS. The belonging piece is really important, and how you feel that you belong at the organization that you're at, what team you're on. And specifically, there's an initiative that we've been doing for just over a year now that we think has been really impactful as part of this strategy. Leslie, you actually created this event, what we call our open mic event. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the inspiration for it.
So the inspiration came from me sitting at one of our open house events, listening to an employee panel, which lasted for a little over an hour. And while it was great, I remember thinking, it's one thing to talk about our culture, but it's another thing to create an environment where people could actually experience the culture. That's powerful. Now, the traditional networking events are typically pretty transactional. You know, what can you do for me? What can I do for you? But for the Black and Latino culture specifically, we're more relational than transactional. So that format doesn't necessarily work for all of us. That's when I began thinking, what if we incorporated music or live entertainment? Given I have a background in music, I used to be in a band, and we used to attend open mics on a weekly basis. And it was just an environment where everyone felt comfortable, created a sense of community, and I thought it'd be pretty powerful to kind of borrow that format and merge that with the traditional professional networking event. That way we create an environment where not only Black and Latino attendees feel comfortable, but everyone feels that sense of belonging and that sense of community. And that also make it easier for people to make new connections, which is what we ultimately need in order to learn more about our attendees and ultimately get them hired.
The power of it for me was, of course, the event, but really thinking back on myself, like it was a realization of this is why diverse teams are important. Like we say that all the time, but this event brought it to life for me. Like it was an idea that I never would have come up with. And it's been so hugely impactful to so many internally and externally. And it's just been a great reminder to me of this is why diverse teams matter, because you'll get new ideas, you'll get different things that'll push you outside of your comfort zone, and that'll bring results that you otherwise never would have achieved. So remember, Leslie, you had so much enthusiasm when you first brought this idea to me. How did you get others that excited?
I happen to have a lot of connections, so I literally ran the idea by everyone that I encountered in our Black and Latino resource group, as well as just everyone at LinkedIn in general, and pretty much got the same response from everyone. This sounds amazing, when is it happening? So by the time you went on your mini roadshow to see how other people feel about the idea, I mean, at that point, everyone showed you the same excitement they showed me, and we were ready to execute.
So you mentioned resource groups. Can you explain a little bit more about what an employee resource group is?
Yeah, sure. We've got employee resource groups for different underrepresented groups at LinkedIn. So we've got it for Black employees, Latino employees, for parents at LinkedIn, for veterans, LGBT, a lot of different groups. We add business value. So the open mic would be a specific example where, unlike a traditional networking event where you may get a few volunteers for the open mic, our employee resource groups members came out in huge numbers, which made it easy for our attendees, our guests, to really feel the sense of community that we have at LinkedIn, which is what ultimately influenced them to want to work at LinkedIn.
So with an event like this, there's certainly some risk to taking a different approach. But what steps did you take to help make sure that this first event would be a success?
In terms of what work went into it, it's not an open mic, like a community open mic, where you sign your name on a sheet of paper and you get up and perform. I leveraged my relationships internally to pre-identify performers. That way I could also control the diversity in the performances that we're gonna see, and also so I could coach them a little bit to let them know, like, we are representing LinkedIn's brand. And just educating our recruiters. This is not your traditional recruiting event where you're gonna have explicit conversations with attendees about what open roles we have, what their background looks like, what skills do you have. It's a community event with hiring outcomes. So the conversation is a little bit different. They're gonna feel like you want them for who they are and not just because of what skills they have on a piece of paper.
So for our first event, we focused on sales professionals. That's who we invited to it. And so one of the questions I get from people is an event like this successful? Can it work for groups that maybe aren't so traditionally extroverted? What would you say?
We initially did the pilot event for sales because sales professionals are known to be more extroverted, more outgoing. However, I always felt that it'll work for any crowd. You know, before you're a sales professional, you're a human being. Before you're an engineer, you're a human being. Before you're in analytics, you're a human being. And live entertainment, in my opinion, resonates with all humans. So we decided to, test it with an engineering crowd, and it was significantly larger than the sales crowd. And it was actually one of the best open mics that we had done. And we've done 2 open mic events for engineering since then, and it resonates just as well with engineers as it does with sales professionals. In my personal opinion, I think it works for human beings, and we've done events for different groups. We've even done it for marketing and communications, and it's worked just as well for all those target audiences. I don't think that answers the open mic per se for every single company. It's just thinking about what's going to showcase your culture in an authentic way. It can be a lot of different things.
So you've spoken about this a little bit, Leslie, but how specifically do we identify the individuals that we ultimately invite to these events?
Given we're focusing on Black and Latino sales professionals, we've got a good number of Black and Latino sales employees, and they have a network of Black and Latino sales professionals. So that's low-hanging fruit. So what we did was leverage our employee resource groups for referrals. We got a ton of referrals. We simply asked them to bring your friends. Some may be looking for jobs, some may not be looking for jobs, but it's just not a recruiting event per se, it's a community event. They can come out, have a good time, learn a little bit more about LinkedIn, meet some new people. We did that as well as source talent using the LinkedIn platform. We used our own product to find talent to invite to the event. So it was a mixture of those 2 things as far as who we invited to the event.
So these events have definitely been successful. Can you share a little bit about what we measure?
Again, this is a community event with hiring outcomes. So NPS, Net Promoter Score, is one of the ways that we measure this event. And for the first event, we had a 96 NPS. 96 essentially means when we surveyed attendees and asked them how likely they are to recommend an event to a friend, almost everyone gave it a 10 out of 10. Also, hires is something that we look at. In the first event, we hired 6 people. I mean, if you hire 1 person from an event, there's your ROI. We hired 6 from the first event. Some of those 6 are now performing at other open mics, so it's just great to see them contributing to our diversity initiatives.
I think you certainly hit on a couple of the important ones. I think some of it's more intangible than that. It's the experience we create and how people feel once they attend one. And while every day at LinkedIn isn't an open mic, what you see are the connection amongst our employees, the ability to showcase other sides of yourself beyond what you might traditionally see in a corporate setting. And I feel like that's been part of the magic of this event, that somebody can walk in and on one night really feel and connect with kind of the heart of our organization. Ultimately, the hires, I believe, will come. This is not a traditional event where we've got a list of jobs that we're trying to fill that night. For some people, it may be closing them on an offer that we've been discussing, but for many attendees, it's the beginning of the conversation. Other things that we look at are we do measure the funnel metrics, so the number of applications post-event, interviews, etc. And we've been really pleased to see we've got healthy funnel coming from these events. Leslie, it's been so much fun getting to be a part of this from the very beginning, seeing the idea you came up with and then how it's come to fruition and the impact it's made on not only our candidates, but us as an organization. And so my biggest takeaway is support ideas that are different than what you've traditionally done. If you don't try new things, you're never going to get different results. Some may work, some may not, so make sure you're okay. But being inclusive to others' ideas are the best ways to get something new and different.